Laurel Rutledge. I am the CEO of LaurelRutledge.com, the creator of the Rutledge Perspective podcast, and now I am the host of the Rutledge Perspective on KCOH TV, The Boost, and I am so excited. My background in human resources and also in business and consulting has given me the opportunity to share information with all of you, and what we're going to do is talk about the foundational pieces, whether or not you're building a business or you're building a career. It all comes down to strategy and people. If you don't know where you're going, how do you know who needs to be on your team? So please join me, join in the conversation, catch the show both on the radio, on the app, and also on Facebook. And I will be on Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Thank you so much for listening. I look forward to seeing you there. Good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Tuesday. Talk It Out Tuesday. Me and Jerry P. Easily. On the Rutledge Perspective, and I'm Laurel. I'm so glad to be here, of course, because Tuesdays just make me happy. They just make me happy because I get to spend the time with y'all. So, for those of y'all who caught me and Jerry's conversation before the show, I encourage all of you to download the app. I haven't even downloaded the app because I watch it on the website, but I am going to download the app. So, download the app. So we'll start with our public service announcements again, and then I've got an announcement that I'm so excited about. So first, vote, vote, vote. Today, August 11th, state primary and presidential primary in Connecticut. State runoff in Georgia. Now, Georgia, y'all know how to show out, so I need you to continue to show up and show out. Minnesota has a state primary. South Dakota has a state runoff. Vermont has a state primary, and Wisconsin has a state primary. So make sure you are getting out to vote. Here's the thing that is happening. With what is happening with the U.S. Postal Service, where mail seems to be slowing down. In fact, I ordered something from Amazon about a week ago, and it just disappeared. I don't even know where it is. They finally even Amazon said, we don't know what happened. If you want a refund, just send it to us. We don't know if it's even going to show up. I don't know what's happening, but what all they're doing about slowing stuff down, the memos that have been released about the Postal Service, and I try not to be too political on this show, but that's really starting to irritate me because the Postal Service is something that everyone has access to. Mm-hmm. Everyone. Because very few of us can afford on a regular basis to be sending stuff through UPS and FedEx. It's too expensive. Right? Where you have the little boxes that is one flat rate and you can get everything you can in that box and it's still the same rate. So if you can, do what you can to support the post office. Go buy some stamps, go buy some tape, go buy something. Go get a post office box, something, so we can support the Postal Service. Because here's the thing that I'm concerned about. Mail-in ballots, absentee ballots, those kind of things, all that comes through USPS, y'all. So if there's stuff that's happening with the post office, what could that potentially do to hamper our election? So it makes it even more important to go in person to vote early, or if you're in one of those places that's really having a resurgence like we are here in Houston, or you are compromised or for whatever reason, get your mail-in ballot and mail it in early. As soon as you get it, mail it in. Pay attention to the deadlines. If you haven't gotten it in the right time, make sure you can find a way to get that. Make sure you are educating yourself on timelines and dates and places. Make sure you are confirming that you are registered to vote. Fairfax County was sending out things telling people they weren't registered when they were. They were also sending out ballots that it turns out at the end were not official ballots. Now, Fairfax County is fixing all of that, but I'm just using that as an example that it's important to pay attention because your vote matters. And I think it was either Common or somebody said, if your vote wasn't so important, they wouldn't be trying so hard to keep you from having it.
Yeah.
Okay, so whatever your vote is, this is not a commentary or a judgment on which way you vote. I don't really care. What I'm really talking about is make sure nothing happens to keep you from exercising your right to vote. Because people died for doing that, okay? So, vote, vote, vote. Connecticut, Georgia, Minnesota, South Dakota, Vermont, and Wisconsin. Also pay attention to voter registration drives. There is a group on Facebook, Blackout. I think right now it says Blackout August 1 through 7, 2020. There is something that they put on there. I believe the website is Black Service Chamber. .com. I'll have to find it, blackservicechamber.com. But they're doing a great deal of voter registration education, talking about where you can go do voter registration drives, all those kind of things. So educate yourself, get registered, find other people to get registered. They are actually putting out flyers, t-shirts, all of this kind of stuff for businesses. They're targeting in particular black and brown businesses that can put out flyers in their business, t-shirts that have QR codes on them, that you can just scan the QR code to figure out how to get voted. So how to get registered to vote. So there's no reason for you not to be registered. There's no reason for you not to be registered. Registered to vote. We are, I think today we're now at 84 days before the election. As of today, 84 days. So if you're not registered to vote, how about put that on your list for today? Go get registered. I'm just saying. Okay, so.
Wait a minute, a comment says that it is the post office personnel attitude also hurt the post office. Yes, indeed, good customer service, which they do not have at the post office. Is that anything?
You know, that's really interesting because you're right. There are some times I would go to the post office and you're in line and people act like they don't want to be there. So it is true that there are some service challenges at the post office. This is true. And just like with every other job, sometimes we need to make sure that we are paying attention. And that's why we're talking about gut today, trusting your gut. We need to pay attention to who we have working for us. And not be afraid to make the tough decisions. Hire slow, fire fast. If someone's not serving them well, because I got to tell you, that comment is really interesting because I got to tell you, when some of this stuff started happening, this probably was 6-8 months ago, I noticed every time I would go into the post office, here's our survey. Is there anything else we could do for you today? Do you feel like you got the service? They were specifically asking the question. There was a whole different change in attitude. So this person is exactly right. Post office, when you go to the post office, it is not known for the best customer service. That is a true statement. And we all still need the postal service.
We need it.
They deliver all the time, right? Not just, Monday through Friday. So you're right. We need to work on customer service, but we also need to make sure we're protecting the post office.
What do you think is happening with the post office? Now, I know that the president is saying that he's not believing in the mail-in voting and all the ballots and all that. So
there's some other stuff that's happening. One, the post office is losing a lot of money. Okay. They're losing a lot of money. But the new leadership, the new postal person, head of the post office, I can't even remember his title, is now making some dramatic changes. They've told people to actually leave the mail if you're having to go back and do another route. Like sometimes they'll come and gather the mail, and then they'll go back again and get another one if there's more mail that came in. No overtime, don't deliver secondary, routes, all that kind of stuff. So they're really starting to delay the mail. But if you think about capitalism, if something happens to the U.S. Post Office, where do you get to go? UPS, FedEx, DHL, those are for-profit entities. So I'm not a big conspiracy theorist, but you got to follow the money.
But Amazon just said that they're taking some malls.
They sure are.
Well,
they sure are. Yes. So I'm just saying. Also, don't forget, we're still in the point of time to fill out your census. It is really, really important to fill out your census. That tells us and gives us the kind of representation that we need. So it takes 10 minutes maybe online, folks. Please fill it out. You can fill it out by mail too, although again, make sure you put the right postage on it. Although I think if you mail in the census, I think it's no postage required. But please fill out your census. If you haven't done it yet, please fill out your census. To my knowledge, they still are saying they're not going to be people out and about census takers.
Said yesterday that they are.
Oh, well, there you go. Okay, good. Yeah. So now they are going to go out. Yeah. So please, if nobody comes to your house, please still fill out the census. Or even if they do, say, hey, we've already filled it out. Okay, so please fill out your census.
They said make sure you wear a mask when you come to the
Yes, absolutely. Wear a mask. I was just seeing things the other day. I'm like, I need to have my exterminator come back again, and I'm going to call them and say, but I need to make sure y'all are wearing masks. Yeah. So good morning, Carlsbad. Good morning, Odessa, Texas. Good morning, y'all. I'm so glad to see you. Cleveland, Ohio. St. Louis, Missouri. Calabasas, California.
And New York City.
NYC. Y'all are doing good in New York City. I wish we were doing the same thing. And right, Leela was saying the USPS traces back to 1775, and it does, and it's supposed to be there for all of us, right? So please support the post office. Even when they got attitude, please support the post office. Okay, so that's voting. Make sure you're getting registered. Make sure you fill out your census. Okay. Now, the announcement, and then we're going to get into today's topic. I put out a save the date. So August 24th, 25th, and 26th. August 24th, 25th, and 26th from 6 to 7:30 in the evening, I'm going to be putting on a summit. And that summit is going to be the 5 secrets to rebuilding your dream team. So whether or not you are just building from the beginning or you're having to redo it because of COVID, I'm going to give you those 5 secrets. I'm doing it as a quick burn. So it's not going to be 5 days or 3 weeks or 12 weeks or whatever. 3 days, an hour and a half, quick burn. And I'm going to give away a couple of memberships to my online resource. Maybe giving away a few consulting hours, and who knows what else I might come up with. So I'm going to be posting where you can register. You can go to laurelrutledge.com/summit, or you can text rebuild to 474747. At least that's supposed to be up and working today, so hopefully it is. Maybe try that tomorrow if you want to text. But you can go to laurelrutledge.com/summit and get registered. So $97 for 3 days.
That's good.
And it's going to be juicy, y'all. So I'd love to see you there. 24th, 25th, 26th of August. That's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 6 to 7:30, and then we're done. And I'll leave the replays up for a while, so if you can't attend because we all got stuff going on, you can still get the replays at least through that Saturday. All right, so let's get into today. Trusting your gut. So here's what happened. Y'all know by now that stuff happens, and I'm like, okay, this is what I want to talk about this week. And sometimes I plan it like a couple of weeks ahead, and sometimes something just happens over a few days. This is something that happened over a few days. So I did an interview for my podcast. It will be up this week with one of my coaches who also happens to be the owner of Buying Time, which is my VA group. And one of the things she talked about was as she built her business from the very beginning was, this decision around, was she going to start her business with a partner or was she going to do it by herself? And that her heart and her gut kept telling her, and all of her, her husband, her friends told her, you just need to do it on your own. You just need to do it on your own. And that's what her heart and her spirit were telling her. But her fear said, no, you better do it with a partner. And let's just say now it's on her own, right? So she started with a partner, but now it's just hers. So she didn't trust her gut about that. And there was some pain and some money and some time associated with that decision that said, I don't know, let me just do what my head says and not trust my gut. Then I had a conversation probably 2 or 3 weeks ago with a client of mine who was talking about building her team and talking to people and how she was going to get people in and how she was going to build this team and that she didn't really feel good. She'd done some interviews and stuff, but she didn't really feel good about it. But they were telling her, oh, no, these are good people. They're nice people. They'd be good on the team. And she said, but Laurel, it just didn't feel right to me. It just didn't feel right. I don't know. Should I just say yes? No. And my response to her as we talked through it was, you got to trust your gut. If you're building something, trust your gut. Now, you got to get data. Y'all know I'm data driven. You need to have data. But our guts are there for a reason. It's that whole fight or flight, right? It's that survival. It's understanding what is going on. And when something doesn't feel right, there's something about it. And you need to examine that. Very rarely, are we in a position where we have to make a decision like immediately. And that does happen. Sometimes you just got to respond. But most of the time, especially when we're talking about our business or we're talking about even our career, we have the opportunity to take some time to make a decision. Mm-hmm. So if your gut is feeling funny, pause. I had this happen to me not too long ago where my normal response was like, okay, let's just get this done. Yep, I'm in. But something told me, you know what, just pause on this. And so I said to the person, I said, you know what, I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait. Let's regroup in a couple of days. Let me think about this. I got a lot going on. I need to spend some more time with this. And I am so glad that I said, not right now. I'm probably still going to do this for next year, this thing. But I'm so glad I said not right now at the moment, because when I started examining it more, I'm like, this is just not the right time for this particular thing. And when I said no to that, 2 other things showed up. that I've been asking for and that I've been hoping for and praying for. So when we don't trust our gut, when we don't think about what our spirit is telling us, when we don't honor the things that we feel but don't necessarily know, like we feel here in our heart and our spirit, but we don't know in our head. When we don't trust that, we often block other things that are meant for us. And so that's why I posted what I posted yesterday, the quote that said, always trust your gut because it knows what your head hadn't figured out yet. So sometimes we can't think our way through things. Sometimes you have to feel your way through some stuff. So I really want you, as you're thinking about, moving forward, thinking about your career, thinking about your business, rebuilding your team, what is your gut telling you about what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go? Because those things that show up to us that way, those things that show up to us, overnight, those things that keep us awake, those things that have our antenna twitching, those are the things that we need to pay attention to. Doesn't mean they're always right. It just means there's something that says pause. And I tend to be a quick move person. My coaches talk about it all the time. They're quick, there are people that are just quick movers. Just do it, and then you just fix it later. That whole idea of being quick and approximate. And just pushing fear aside and saying, well, the worst that can happen is X, so let's just do it. And there is some value in that, and there's some strength in that and some courage in that. And I encourage you, when you can, to just move quickly. Because if you have planned, if you've done a strategy, as we've talked about, if you know where you're going, then even if what you do is not exactly right, then you are flexible enough, you have enough of a plan, potentially a plan B, that you can move and pivot if you need to. But at least you've done something, right? So imperfect action is better than perfect inaction. But trust your gut as you're doing that imperfect action. Because sometimes that's the same gut that says, ooh, I may not need to go in there right now. I may not need to take that job right now. There's something in that interview process that said, I don't know if that's the right place for me at this moment. And you want to trust that. You don't want to get so desperate that you make a decision that is going to be really painful to undo later on. And speaking of that, when you talk about gut, I know my dad used to always tell us when we were buying a car, never be so much in love with that vehicle that you can't leave it on the showroom floor. Never be so much in love with that vehicle that you're not ready to leave it on the showroom floor. And I think about that all the time, because never be so committed to an idea that you're not willing to absorb and observe additional data about that idea that may either support it or require that you adjust it. You got to be willing to even challenge your own perspectives and be willing to trust that you have done the preparation. Remember last week we talked about lifelong learning and preparation, because luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So always be prepared to respond. And that doesn't mean you always get it right, but sometimes preparation to respond is preparation to say, oop, I need a minute. That may be the only prep you have. Yeah. It's to at least know yourself and know your gut enough to know, I need a minute and I'm going to take this minute and have the courage to do so. Because I remember when I bought my very first car, I had moved to Detroit, and I loved my car too. I had a 5-speed Taurus SHO. So let me just, full disclosure, I got a lead foot. I do. And I love big throaty engines. I love muscle cars. I know it's weird, but what can I say? I'm a girl who loves speed, right? And I love big throaty engines. I mean, I'm not a big BMW fan, but the sound of the BMW engine is just magic. Anyway, I digress. So I got ready to buy this car, and I was in Detroit. I'm driving this Taurus SHO. That's when you could get it with a 5-speed. So I was in heaven. And it was just time. I mean, I was there. It was snowing. I did not need this car in the snow. So I did all my research. I decided I wanted a Jeep. And I was going to buy a new car, a new Jeep 4x4. Found the one I wanted. Went to the dealership. The dealership was recommended to me. Went to the dealership. Worked with the dealer. Had all the pricing, everything ready to go. And preparation, because my gut told me, you're a woman buying a car. And while I'm going to say that dealerships, the people in dealerships are not themselves untrustworthy, but there are behaviors that can be disconcerting. Looks like that was Pete. There are behaviors that are a little bit concerning around how you buy a car, especially if you're a woman. So I prepared. My gut told me, be prepared. So I actually put together one of those little spreadsheets that looks exactly like the sheet you get when you buy a car. You know, it says the trade-in value and all that kind of stuff. So I put my whole sheet together. When I got ready to actually go pick up the car, I was turning mine in. The salesperson came back, gave me the little, you know, the sheet, and here's what you're going to pay. And I told him when I got in, you know, if you ask me how much I want to pay a month, I'm going to another dealership. Because, see, that's how they get you. FYI. That's a little nugget. If they start with how much you want to pay a month, that's not the question you want to ask. Because you could be paying $5 million for a car, but you're only paying $500 a month. So, no. So I got there, got ready to buy the car. When I got the price, I'm like, this is wrong. No, this is right. I said, it is absolutely wrong. Turns out that the finance guy at this dealership had put in an additional warranty that raised the monthly cost by almost $200. And so I kindly said, I am going to go somewhere else. Please give me back the keys to my car. I closed my computer. I said, because then this is telling me, one, you guys think I'm stupid. And two, now I got a problem with your integrity. I said, and my gut was already kind of funny with this dealership based on some other stuff. And then I find out that the finance guy was hot because he got caught. And then the sales manager comes out, no, that's not what we meant. That's not. And I got the biggest deal on that car because then, you know, I had a true experience that I could then tell people it was going to be a reputational issue. Right. So I only give you that to say, trust your gut. So I knew something felt really weird about that, but I wanted the car. But I also remembered my dad said, be ready to leave that car on the showroom floor. Don't get so caught up that you're ready to leave it. So my gut gave me the ability to prepare and to be ready. That preparation gave me the courage to be able to walk away. So I had the data that supported my gut, and my gut gave me the courage to make the decision. And ultimately, I ended up getting a really good deal. And I love that car, except it was a Jeep and they have a hard time making transmissions. So I ended up having to do something else later on. But that's neither here nor there. So when you think about how you're moving forward, especially when we talk about what's going on now with COVID and how you're bringing people back to work and whether or not you're bringing people back to work. There was so much on the news this morning with the schools now opening back up and who's going first and who's not going and all the, my head started spinning. I don't have kids in school. About who's showing up when and how they're showing up and distributing the technology. I mean, it was insane. And I thought, you know what? There are parents now who are really going to have to trust their gut. They are going to have to be honest about knowing their kids and honest about what it means for their household and what it means for their children and what it means for their family in order to make these decisions, at least the decisions that they can make depending on what's going on with the school. And so when we are looking at how we lead, how we run our businesses, how we develop our careers, how we move through this life, that gut instinct is critical to the decisions we make. It's critical to our safety. There's a reason we have it, that whole fight or flight, right, response. That's all gut driven. Something tells you something is really right or something tells you something is wrong. And that's why I think you hear people all the time saying, I would much rather have common sense than book sense. Right. And that gut is part of that common sense. Or like Mom's Mabley said, you know, when you're crossing the street, tell the kids, dang the lights, watch the cars. Because the lights ain't never killed nobody. Right? So watch the cars. It's the same thing. What are the cars that are about to come roll you over? What are the rules and the engagement that are about to make you do something or feel something or say something that doesn't feel right? And how can you respond to that? Because your gut is very rarely wrong. It may not be exactly right, but there's something about your gut that's telling you to re-examine something. And don't be so focused and so myopic on the thing it is you're trying to do that you don't pay attention to that stuff that we all as humans have inherently. It is truly something we have. Now, I do worry about people that don't have a lot of common sense because I have to wonder what happened. because that's a little scary. Folks that don't have just plain old common sense. But there's something in that gut reaction, in that ability to sense when things are weird, that you need to know. When you're a leader and you're building a team, just like we're going to talk about in this summit, you know when that person that is on your team is either the wrong person or not doing what they need to do. You know that. Mm-hmm. You know that. Your gut tells you that.
Or even when they switch.
Or when they switch.
The right person.
Yes.
In the beginning, yeah.
Exactly. And your gut tells you something is different.
Yeah.
And so it is incumbent upon you as the leader to figure out what changed. Now, yes, you have to be careful because we're litigious and we got all this compliance stuff, but there is nothing that keeps you from asking what changed. Is there something going on that I need to know about? That's a very perfectly legal question. Is there something that has changed that I need to know about? Is there information you don't have or support you don't have that is impacting your ability to do this work? Those are valid questions to ask, but don't sit there with something that's not working in your gut and leave it, because ultimately you as the leader are responsible. And you know when something's not right. So step up and find something. Call it out. You don't have to be ugly. You don't have to be nasty. You don't have to accuse someone of being wrong or being lazy or being whatever. Ask the questions. Always start with asking questions. Is there something that I need to know? Has something happened that has impacted your ability to do this? Is there information that you have now gathered that we didn't have in the beginning? I mean, there are a mile long of questions you can ask to figure out what is happening that can either validate or not validate the gut feeling you're having. But don't sit with that gut that says something's wrong and do nothing. Now that's a choice. I'm just saying, we've talked about that. We all have choices. But that choice of doing nothing when your gut says something is wrong can be really damaging to you and to your business. There was someone who, and in fact, if she's listening or somebody knows her, there's a woman, and I can say her name because her name was public, in one of these groups. I think it may have been in Blackout, the Blackout group on Facebook, or it was Houston Black-owned restaurants. I can't remember. But her name was Kiara Fears, and she was talking about her disappointment at hiring people and how they had shown up. She'd done everything she was supposed to do. She'd gone to somewhere to do the boards to be able to get the information on who the people were. She had gone to the interviews. She'd had them do interviews. She'd done interviews. All of these things were happening. But then people showed up and they weren't who they said they were, or they didn't want to show up, or they didn't show up in time, or they had all kinds of issues. She said, that's not who I interviewed. That's not who they were when I interviewed. And I'm going to reach out to her because I'd really like to know who she's using, and to make sure that that's a robust process, right? Because that can be a problem too. I think somebody's at the door. Yeah, that could be a problem too. But that gut that she had that said, yeah, I think these people are probably okay. I think the challenge is going to be, is that what she really meant, that people are okay? Or did she actually feel that in her gut in the beginning to say, I don't know. But it was so important that she get some people for her business, because we get there sometimes.
Right.
We have got to hire. We can't keep doing it by ourselves. We've got to get somebody in. And then we hire people, or we can't find the people that we want, or we get desperate because we've interviewed 40 people and none of them were exactly right. So we're like, oh my God, let's just take the lesser of the evils. Remember to follow your gut. Hire slow, fire fast. If it's not right, if the person's not right, that is not a testimony on their character. You are hiring somebody for your business that is going to help you achieve what you want to achieve in your business. That is not a slam or a judgment on who they are as a person. That is what I try to tell people all the time, whether it is a personal issue or whether it is a business issue. The reason you try to find out how people think and why they have acted the way they've acted, that's that whole thing about behavioral interviews, right? Have you had this situation where you had a boss that you felt mistreated you, or have you been in this situation? How'd you respond? The reason you ask those things is because past behavior can predict future behavior. But the other reason you ask is because by knowing the why of people's behavior, you can have some compassion for them as a person, but you can then put that aside and say, okay, now I understand why why they behave the way they behave. But now I can, because I understand that and have compassion about that as a person, I can now address the behavior individually. Because the behavior is what needs to change. Mm-hmm. And the behavior is not necessarily a commentary on who the person is or what the character is. Mm-hmm. So despite what many think that it is, that behavior is automatically indicative of your core character, I don't believe that to be true, although there may be some psychologists who disagree with me. Because behavior sometimes is a response, just like gut, right? That fight or flight. Mm-hmm. It is not necessarily a detailed commentary on your character. Because sometimes situational behavior is simply that, situational behavior. Not what you would fundamentally do as part of your character. Although stress behavior often is an indicator of, how people go in their comfort zone. That is an indication of who people are. So,
well, is that when people say, you made me get out of my character?
I laugh when people say that. You made me come all out of character to address you like that. See, that is not a true statement. What they're really saying is, I've been able to control who I really am, but you made me show you who I really am, right? So, and we all have those moments, right? We have our professional behavior, and that's not being disingenuous or untrue to who you are. There is behavior that is appropriate for different situations. And that's not being untruthful, that's not being fake, that's not being false. It's just like, do you wear jeans to a formal? No, you wear a formal to a formal. Mm-hmm. So there are some behaviors that you bring to work, and there are some behaviors that you take to the family barbecue. Most of the time, those two behaviors don't mix. Mm. Because the things you do and the things you say at your family barbecue are not necessarily things you do and say at work. Just like I say, when people go to work events, remember, it is still a work event. I don't care if it's a carnival or an outdoor party or a pool party or whatever. It is a work event. Mm-hmm. These are people you are going to see in the office again. Use your work behavior.
That's true.
Use your work behavior. That means if you know your limit is 2, you have 1. You don't have 10.
Yeah.
You can have 10 at your house, right?
Yeah.
With your family. Don't do that. So that gut reaction, that understanding of who you are fundamentally and how that resonates with how you respond. And again, you gotta pay attention to data too. But when that gut is saying, I don't know, you gotta trust that. Because even with data, this is one of the reasons why I'm glad I'm an accountant, but I don't love accounting. Because you can make numbers be whatever you want them to be. Now notice I didn't say should. I said you can make numbers be whatever you want them to be. Mm. That's not a should or shouldn't. That's a can or can't. You can. That's why Enron happened and Anderson isn't there anymore, and and a whole lot of other things, right? Because people can make numbers what they want them to be. It may not be legal, but it can be done. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at data, you also have to have enough of a gut and enough experience and enough courage to examine data that's given to you, because people even sometimes will only give the data that supports their position. They won't necessarily give you the data that is indicative of everything you need to know. We're seeing some of that now about the data around COVID and cases and which cases there and how many deaths are there and is it the percentage of overall population. Everybody saw that interview, right? So again, depending on your position, you can find data to support a position.
Right.
You can absolutely find data to support a position. Anybody can for anything. You can go find data to support it. What real, courageous, authentic, honest people with integrity do is go get the data and let the data speak for itself. And if it supports you, great. And if it doesn't, well, then you got to change your perspective or own the fact that your opinion is different than the data says. Either one. Because everybody's entitled to their opinion.
Yeah.
But be honest and say, you know what? This is my opinion. I know the data says different, but I just feel like this is what it should be. Okay. Mm-hmm. I mean,
Yeah.
Okay. But own it as an opinion and not as fact.
Right.
And when you have a gut and the data says that your gut is wrong, then examine your gut a little bit more, because I just believe that there's something about a gut reaction that says you need to go examine further. It just may not mean that the gut reaction is what you thought it was. It may actually be something else that's making your gut feel funny. So take the time. If the data negates what you initially thought your gut was, make the time to say, hey, Okay, it wasn't that, but something still doesn't feel right. Because if it doesn't feel right, something's not right. Something's not right. And in most cases, there really is time for us to make a different decision or to get different data or to pivot. That is an option. It is absolutely an option. Very rarely do we have those things where we got to do something immediately. Very rarely. So, when you're rebuilding this team, and we'll talk about this in this summit, when you're looking at building your team or rebuilding your team, and I called it rebuilding on purpose because as we come through COVID, whether it's your own business or you've got a department or a function that you're building, and whether or not everybody comes back or just some people come back, even if your whole team comes back, you're still rebuilding because people have been through some stuff. People have really been through some stuff. And so you are rebuilding right now, no matter what you're doing. You are rebuilding. And so how do you make sure that as you are rebuilding, you are paying attention to what people are saying and what people are doing, and you are letting your gut do some level of informing your response? Now, in business, you got to be careful that your gut isn't making you do something that's illegal or non-compliant. You still got to be compliant. But your gut informs, especially if you got experience, especially if this is not your first rodeo. Mm-hmm. Say, this ain't my first rodeo. Especially if it's not. Your gut is going to have some information that is critical to you. And so trust it to be able to help you make decisions that make sense for the situation that you're in.
Your gut has experience, what you're saying, because you can tell, my gut is saying this is too familiar.
Right.
They're saying too many of the familiar things that the last one said that
right.
did not work out.
Right.
So you can go by that, right?
Right. Right. Our experience does absolutely inform what we do. And that's why I say often, especially when you're in HR and you're talking to leaders about compensation, about who they're hiring, whether or not you really have to have 10 years of experience to do the job, or you have to have a graduate degree, or whatever the have-tos are, right, to do some kind of work. We always challenge some of those things because sometimes, especially in compensation and especially in positioning, sometimes it is the experience that truly is the determining factor. Because if you, in fact, do not need 10 years of experience, 14 years of experience, 8 years of experience, whatever it is, then it may also mean that job is not as high a level job as it used to be. Mm. So do you even really need a degree at all? I mean, that's what businesses are really challenging themselves now about as well. Really getting into their gut or through the experience of, does every job that we have in our organization, even the ones that right now we require a degree, do they really require a degree? And if they do, why? Because we said they do? Or because there's something that comes out of that level of study, that level of education, that increases the experience and the discernment and the thought process that is critical to doing the job well? And if that's the case, then sure, require the degree. But if that's not the case, then don't put yourself in a position to lose exceptional talent because somebody said you have to have something that may or may not be necessary. And so you have to challenge when you are starting to see how your team is moving, how your business is moving forward, how your performance is moving, how your people's goals and their capabilities and their execution is impacting your success. When you look at that, examine the data. Remember, we're talking about data and gut. Examine the data and then challenge that data against your gut around how this is working. Because if you really believe that experience is critical, then does the data show you that? And if the data doesn't show you that, then it's time for you to say, okay, but what was it that made me think that was true? Okay, safety first. So, sorry, y'all. This is what happens on live radio. We got some folks doing some stuff in Windows, and this ladder he's getting on is a little wobbly, and, my HR hat just kind of went on. I thought, whoop, workers' comp. So, just please be careful. So it's really critical, guys, as we move forward, whether it's our own business, whether it's our own career, that we take into account all of those norms that have been put in place, all of the things that we have said, this is the way it's supposed to be. This is the way it's supposed to be done. Because all of that has been challenged in COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we thought was a must do has been challenged.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be in the office to be able to do this effectively. You have to meet face to face in order to have really great conversations. You have to be able to meet annually in person for it to be valuable. All of that stuff has been challenged.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that the data is telling us something different.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the data tells us something different and our gut is saying, I don't know, I still think it's much more important for us to meet in person. Why? Why? Because again, your gut is telling you something. The data is opposite of the gut. And my guess would be if your gut is still saying, we got to meet in person, that's really about something that you have experienced with those particular individuals or that particular situation that says, I can trust it more if it's in person. I can be sure that I'm getting what I said I was going to get if it's in person. Because I can look folks in the eye. I can watch body language better. Because it's still not as good if it's video. If I can feel the vibe, if they're right there in the room with me, right? That gut thing is more valuable than I think any of us ever knew. And I would tell you and encourage you, if you are hiring people, if you're building team, if you are putting people in your circle, trust your gut. Trust your gut. Because your gut is going to help you do the right thing, move in the right circles, make sure that you are paying attention to the things that could be not only harmful to you, but also helpful to you. That gut instinct is invaluable, invaluable. So don't discount that just because someone else says that your gut may not be accurate. Don't discount it because it really is key. It really is key. Okay.
You're absolutely right when you talk about even including people in the circle and your gut, and for business leaders, and because sometimes all money's not good money.
Say that again.
All money's not good money.
Thank
so
you.
I'm never in a rush to just make money. I
Right.
like money. I love
Right.
money.
Right.
But I'm never so much in a rush that
Right.
I will compromise the peace or the circle
Right.
if my gut is saying this is not going to be a
Right.
good person to have
Right.
aboard. So
Right.
I take a lot of time, and people think that's moving slow, but I have to be accurate. Now, when I met you, I'll be honest,
Right.
I quickly said,
You
need
did.
a show.
You did.
The reason why I was
Scared
able
me
to
too.
quickly, I said, you need a show.
Right.
The reason why I was able to move quickly on that because I'd already stated what I wanted,
Right.
and what type of show I wanted,
Right.
and I wrote it down, and that was a prayer request. This is
Yes.
the type of show that I want. And when you came in through Adrian,
Right.
and you began to speak, I said, that's it. She's
Yeah.
the one for
Right.
this. So sometimes you have to understand that most visionary leaders, they know what they want.
Exactly.
And they know when it's not what they
Right.
want.
Right. And that, again, that's that gut, right?
Yeah.
That's that gut. And your data was, I knew what I wanted. I wrote down what I wanted.
Yeah.
I know how it fits into the overall plan. And that way, when I see it, I know it.
Yeah.
When I see it, I know it. And that's why gut is valuable. Gut is valuable. Gut can protect you, but it can also push you.
That's good.
Because in those same lines, I had been saying, here's what I want to do. I want to be more visible. I want to be more visible. That's what I'm going to do. And then Jerry said, you need a show. I was like, ooh, I don't know. I don't know. Let me think about it. And I had to really sit and had people push me to say, are you nuts? Because my gut said, this is what you wanted. This is what you asked for. You never thought about it in this form, because that's why I say you got to examine your gut. Because sometimes things show up that are the thing you wanted. They just aren't necessarily the form you expected.
That's good.
And so I had to really sit back and say, but wait a minute. Let me sit with my gut here, because that is my head talking. That's my head talking. That's not my spirit talking. That's my head talking. And sometimes your head is in such protective mode because that's what it's trained to do, right? It's trained to, at least my mind, because I have a lot of risk management in my background. It's trained to look at all of the risks, all the things that could go wrong before you make the decision, which is a good way to be, because again, it's kind of that gut, that protective piece. But it can also really make you doubt in places you shouldn't have doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not paying attention to the overall message. You're not paying attention to the gut message aligned with the data to then make the decision. And so as I looked at that, I was like, no, come on, you got to do it. And you've got to think about that not only in your personal career, because that's what I would consider this to be a professional blessing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you've also got to look at it personally, because I remember, shout out to Indiana University, Kelley School of Business. I remember being in grad school, and when we first started, we had these cohorts, right? So IU was one of the first schools in their MBA programs to do where you stayed together and the professors rotated in and out. And in this group, we were all like put in groups the first semester of like 5 people. And I remember my group of 5, one of whom I still stay in touch with every once in a while. But there was a guy in there and who seemed to be such a nice guy. And I thought, man, this guy is on it. This guy is really, I mean, he's going to make stuff happen in terms of somebody we can rely on as a group. We are all rocking. We're all going to make sure we do our part, blah, 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 blah. And there was just a little antenna. It was so faint that I thought, nah, it's good. And I really believed in this person. And when we were doing our very final project, because it was a group project, this is the person that laid down on us. And I remember thinking afterwards, you know what? I am a pretty good judge of people very quickly. Very quickly. I get a gut feeling very, very quickly. But after this situation, I said, you know, every once in a while, you're going to be wrong. And you're going to have to take a little bit more time to listen to your gut, to get the data, and to make sure that what you're feeling is supported by the experience that you have. And so after that, while I still get that immediate kind of yay, nay, maybe, I still get that immediately when I meet people. But I do take a little more time now. And for the most part, still, I'm usually right with my first impression. And I do that not from a judgy perspective. I do it from just a gut experience perspective. I'm usually right, and I know how to manage through that. But I also am aware of myself enough to know and willing enough to be aware that there's always a chance that you're wrong. There's always a chance that you're going to have data or experience that will tell you that your gut has something that's going on, but it may not be what you think it is. Because sometimes we like to tell our gut what it means. And our gut knows what it means. We just don't always know what our gut means. We just know something's telling us something's not right. Or we need to move in a different way or something. So take the time, as Jerry said, take the time. We all actually have time to make decisions most of the time. And if it's a decision that's a really quick decision, also trust your gut there, but also be willing to continue to gather data just in case you need to pivot. There's no shame in changing your mind.
Mm-hmm.
There's no shame in changing your mind or saying, ooh, that was not what I thought it was going to be. And just making a different decision or pivoting really quickly. There's no shame in that. In fact, there is strength and courage in being willing to say, you know what? That actually wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be something different. And it wasn't. And it just happens.
I thought about that when we were talking about the comedy club that's here at the radio station. And as we were getting prepared before COVID happened, and to have it was going to be every weekend. And I was so excited. And then all of a sudden I began to think, that's a lot of my time. That's wait a minute, that's going to kind of block me from doing some other stuff.
Right.
I don't know. And then COVID happened.
Yes.
And it actually was a blessing in disguise because it gave me time to re-strategize.
Yep.
As opposed to doing it every weekend, you do it virtually, once a month, twice a month, however you can afford to do it, and the time that you can afford to give to that.
Right.
And so you're right, it's okay to pivot, but if COVID didn't happen, I wonder would I've still gone on with it and then been mad at myself for blocking myself from other stuff. And so we got to be careful about that.
As my friend Lanier told me a long time ago, sometimes rejection is protection. Sometimes something gets in the way of what you really thought you wanted.
Yes.
And as upset as we are and as disappointed as we may be, hindsight is always 20/20. And I know for me, when something has happened like that, when I get to hindsight, there is always a reason that happened, and it turns out to be the best thing that could have happened.
Yes.
Always. I cannot think of a time where that wasn't the case. Not a single time when that wasn't the case. And I was upset at the time because it was something I really wanted. But sometimes rejection is protection.
That's good.
Sometimes rejection is protection. And we got to be okay with that. We may be upset. We may be disappointed. We may be all those little things. And that's all right. You know, because it's life. And that happens.
And if we be honest, we can honestly say that when he closed the door, we really missed the bullet.
Yeah. Absolutely.
In all the cases. So.
In almost every case, you dodged a bullet, a big one, usually when something like that happens. Or when something is revealed to you that you didn't expect. You know, I didn't get a chance to meet with this person, and then it comes back, I'm like, woo, glad that didn't happen. Because I didn't realize that that's what kind of they were into, or what they were going to be doing, or that's what their philosophy was going to be, which is totally not aligned with mine. And that has happened on some occasions, where I was beating myself up saying, man, you didn't return that phone call. You didn't go and return that email. You didn't, especially now, you know, as you're building a business. You did not, you should have been right on that. And then something happens. I'm like, whoop, yep, see, I didn't need to do that. And there's a reason that it happened that way. And it's for the best that it happened that way. Because that would not have been aligned with where I'm trying to go, or what I'm trying to do, or how I am trying to show up.
You know, you and I talked before the show, and I told you that I felt this. I had someone, I was on a conference meeting last night, and they were saying, what do you think the next move is? And I said, for me, I'm not hearing the next move. It's just to listen daily and to hold my plans loosely. I mean, don't just hold them so close to me, because anytime it can switch, it can change.
Absolutely.
And I believe that if God gives you the vision, He'll give you the strategy, even if it has to go a different direction. And we just have to know what that strategy is as He gives it to us.
Yeah.
Because right now we are in the middle of a pandemic.
We are.
And most people don't believe that, but we really are. And so a lot of time we have enough time to really check our gut.
We do. There has never been a time when we've had this much time.
Yeah, but I think there's people that are rushing to make quick decisions.
Yeah.
And this is just not, to me, a time to make these quick decisions, especially ignoring your gut, because you have a lot of time to really learn how to discern. This may not be the time to do this.
It is a great time to be still. It's a great time to be still, to really take the time to learn and grow and develop and decide and pivot. And I mean, this is a great time to do a lot of that. And you know, I did see something, I think I talked about this on my show before. I did see something the other day that said, we're putting so much pressure on people to say, if you come out of this pandemic and you haven't learned something new and you haven't done something different, then, you know, it really wasn't that you didn't have time, it's that you didn't have discipline. And again, on the surface, that sounds logical. Because when are we ever going to have this kind of time where we have to stay home? You can't just be tootling around. You got a summit coming up.
Yes. Right? And that's the perfect time, because while you're saying that, I'm like, I need that summit. That's a good investment. Yeah. And you need the summit, because if you're going to go any further, you're going to need a team. You're going to need to know how to get the right team.
Exactly.
You can't just have overturns.
Right.
So that's a good time. Those things that you're doing and you're talking about doing, I do think it is a good time to learn. So when we do open up, or whatever happens, you'll be prepared and you have all the skills. And
even that in timing, when I think about, you know, this is year 3, I think, for my business, year 3. Ooh, Lord, time just flies. I think it's year 3. And, you know, I was talking to somebody yesterday and I said, I thought, you know, I left corporate end of 2017. I thought, no problem, this will be up and running. I'll be doing my thing by March 2018. I had good intentions. And what do they say? The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yes.
I had good intentions, man. I was going to be on it. Then I found out what on it really meant in this new age of entrepreneurship and social media, which I hate, and all that kind of stuff, right? But and there were times when I was like, Laurel, why can you not get off your rear end and get this done? Why can you not? But again, it's all about the right timing. It was not time for me to be doing this summit at another time. It was not time for me to have this online HR resource for small businesses. It was not time for me to have this radio show in 2018. It wasn't the time. That doesn't mean that all of a sudden, my experience is that much better or I'm that much better. It just means that this is the time. This is the place. This is the moment. And so how do we seize those? How do you get so close to your gut and so close to who you are? Because you got to be honest with you if you're going to follow your gut.
Mm-hmm.
And so whether it's career or whether it's building a business, you got to be honest with you. And when you got issues, you got to know that. I know what my issues are, and I know I got some.
Mm.
And some of those I work on daily to address, daily, because none of us is perfect. And there's some others, like having a poker face, that just aren't going to happen. And I'm okay with that. Because that's just too much work. It's way too much work for my personality to try to get a poker face. That's just not going to happen. But I can, because I'm aware that I'll have a poker face, I can control the words that come out of my mouth and how they come out of my mouth.
What
So
about
that
trust issues?
What about what?
Trust
issues. Well, yeah.
No, because one of my issues is that because I
Yes.
don't like fast talkers.
Right.
And so I'm
Right.
like, don't shoot them down because you don't like a fast talker. But I'm
Right.
like, son, about a fast talker. You're
Right.
talking too fast.
Right.
So is that wrong? Is that something that need to be fixed?
That's so funny. No, but you know what? What's interesting about that, Jerry, though, is because, again, your gut has told you from experience that
Yes.
fast talkers are not going to be true and honest and trustworthy. So your gut is saying, whoop, fast talker, I got to not pay attention to that.
Yeah.
But you wait for the data to say, yep, my gut was right, and then you keep it moving.
Okay.
Or, you know what? Wait a minute. Yeah, they're talking really fast, but what they're saying makes sense. Maybe I need to listen just a couple more minutes, and then I'll know, right? So it's not that that's bad, because, again, our ability to trust or feel the way we feel is based on how we've experienced things. We just got to know that. And sometimes our experiences are always real. So if you hear anything, well, I hope you hear a lot out of today, but one of the things I want you to hear about today, because it happens, especially now in the era of a focus on anti-racism and microaggression and unconscious bias, negating someone's experience is the height of disrespect. Let me say that again. Negating someone else's experience is the height of disrespect. Because how are you going to tell me that my experience is invalid? How are you going to tell me that I did not experience what I told you I experienced? Because you weren't there, I was. And you are not me, I am. And while my life and my rearing and my thinking and who I am informs how I experience something, that is still my experience. And so those experiences inform how we interact with other people, which is, again, why I go back to one of the first things I said. That's why I try to always understand why people feel and act the way they do, because then I can separate the behavior from the person. Because I can say, well, these are the kind of things that happen to them. Now I understand that. I understand why they behave the way they do. Now let me address the behavior from the standpoint of, this is the behavior that I observed, and this is why this behavior is problematic. It's not, you got to stop doing that. I don't know what it is about you that always makes you do this. Because it's not about you. It's about the observed behavior and the impact of the behavior. So, with that.
I like that.
With that.
When you say from the point of my experience, you mean like if it's a traumatic experience that you've experienced?
Any experience.
Or your job experience?
Exactly. It's just like, if you, as you're growing up, and they said, don't touch the stove when it's on because it's hot, and you touch the stove and you burned your hand, you'll know not to do that again. Right? Or, when you flip the switch, the light comes on. If you flip the switch and the light doesn't come on, your experience tells you something's wrong. The lights are out, somebody didn't pay a bill, doesn't have a bulb, something, right? But our experiences, the things we go through, good and bad, inform what our expectations, and therefore our behaviors or reactions to what we experience.
Got it. Because I think about there's a lot of people, even with your job experience, that think that what you do, if we're talking on the air, this is easy. That this is easy work. Yeah. And even me running a radio station, all she got to do is just talk on the air and then think of, no, because there's marketing, there's other stuff, and there's business to take care of. So you get it when you say you don't like people to negate your experience. Yes. Because your experience is your experience. Yes. And what looks like it takes you 2 hours to do it really can take you 20 hours to do it. You just may be doing it somewhere else because of years of experience. That's good. Laura, you good, girl. That's your experience.
I'm just saying. Right? And I will say this is not easy. It's a lot of fun. I'm having fun. I hope y'all are having fun. I really enjoy when everybody is here and watching. Thank y'all on my Facebook page. Thank y'all on the KCOH app.
Yes.
I'm gonna try to figure out a way to comment to
On
y'all
the
too.
TuneIn app.
And the TuneIn app and
And on
Alexa,
Alexa.
and on KCOHradio.com. You can find us everywhere, y'all.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. So thank you. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you guys tuning in every week. It really does make a difference. And I hope that what I'm giving you is adding value. And if there's something you want me to talk about, send me a note on my Facebook page, send Jerry a note, send it through the app, and I will, I'll figure out something to give you this value. But if there's something that's really important to you, let me know.
Yeah,
Let
you
me
can
know.
definitely send it to KCOH TV, the Boost, the Facebook page, and send us a message. And definitely Laurel has the ability to get that. She'll be able to get that. And so definitely. But the fact that you're doing good and the people are consistently staying on, that means you add value, Laurel.
Yes,
and so
I love it.
want you to
Thank
know
you.
that publicly you add value. That's why it wasn't
it.
hard for me to say yes.
I'm working on saying yes faster, Jerry. See, I'm learning.
Yeah, and normally I'd be like, girl, but I ain't.
Right? Well, it is. I'm telling you, y'all, it is fun to be here. Tuesdays are my favorite day of the week. And yeah, we've been doing it. God, this is 5 months, Jerry.
Wow.
This is 5 months. So thank you guys for being supportive. Thank you for showing up. I really, really appreciate it. Continue to tell people that we're on. I'd love to have more. Send me comments. Send me what you want. We will catch you next week. I'm going to head on out, get ready for my next meeting. And we'll catch you next time. Take care, y'all.